Hi, and thanks for joining me to learn about the Southern California Montane Forest Project. I'm Megan Jennings, a research scientist and co-director of the Institute for Ecological Monitoring and Management at San Diego State University. I'm part of the collaborative team that includes the Climate Science Alliance, the U.S. Forest Service, and the U.S. Geological Survey's Southwest Climate Adaptation Science Center, who are all working together to develop a climate-informed conservation strategy to protect and preserve Southern California's forests. The Southern California Montane Forest Conservation Strategy is a project designed to find common ground across these landscapes to better understand the vulnerabilities and threats facing our forests so we can identify approaches and coordinated actions we can use to enhance forest resilience. We can only do this by working together to design a strategy that bridges boundaries to address the threats our forests face with an all-lands approach. To do this, we want to support the development of a community of practice, working with resource and fire managers, policymakers, the science community, tribal partners, community members, and many more who care about Southern California's forests and the ecosystem services they provide. Working collaboratively with these partners and stakeholders, we plan to develop the Forest Conservation Strategy, where we'll identify implementation actions and work to promote collaboration to protect and restore Southern California's montane forests. The team leading this work is divided into the Research and Management team and our Engagement Strategy team. The Research and Management team, who will be conducting the science review and identifying goals and strategies to address the vulnerabilities and threats our forests face, include Dr. Hugh Safford, ecologist with the Pacific Southwest region of the U.S. Forest Service, Dr. Sarah Hennessy, associate province ecologist in Southern California with the Pacific Southwest region of the Forest Service, Dr. Nicole Molinari, province ecologist in Southern California with the Pacific Southwest region of the Forest Service, Dr. Carolyn Enquist, deputy director of the Southwest Climate Adaptation Science Center, and Jeff Hayes, resource officer on the Cleveland National Forest. The Engagement Strategy team, working to reach out to partners and gather input as we develop the strategy, includes myself at San Diego State University, Dr. Amber Paris, director of the Climate Science Alliance, and Connor McGee, research and applications manager for the Climate Science Alliance. For this strategy, we're defining montane forests as the areas greater than 4,000 feet in elevation that are dominated by hardwood and conifer trees. In this map, you can see the areas of coniferous forest in dark green and hardwood forest in light green. These are situated within the boundaries of the four Southern California national forests depicted on the map. These are the areas of the landscape where our project will be focused. The forests within this region face a number of threats and stressors that are increasing and intensifying, many of which are connected to climatic shifts that we're already experiencing. This includes rapidly increasing temperatures, persistent and long-term droughts, more variable precipitation regimes, pollution, increasingly large and severe wildfires, habitat loss for wildlife and plants, and an increase in the incidence of forest pests, pathogens, and invasive species. The forests play an important role in our region and for our communities, which is why it's so critical that we protect them before we see further losses in forest cover in Southern California. They're integral to watershed protection and provide a number of important ecosystem services like carbon sequestration, plant and wildlife habitat, as well as important recreational opportunities and cultural connections for the 23 million people who live in Southern California's major metropolitan areas. Like many areas in the West, forest loss is being driven by wildfires and tree mortality, but it's more pronounced in Southern California's Sky Islands, where montane forests are limited to the high elevations of the transverse and peninsular mountain ranges. With warming temperatures and increasing drought frequency and severity under climate change, these threats are intensifying. Wildfire in particular has become a key issue in our forests, largely because it's become less frequent under the history of fire suppression that's gone on for the last 100 years. You can see in this map, much of the region's high elevation forests are represented by the purple color, which denotes areas where fires become 67 to 99% less frequent than it was historically. Without these frequent, low-intensity fires, our forests have become more dense, and the understory and ladder fuels have accumulated, making the forests more susceptible to stand-replacing fire. From research conducted in the early 2000s, we know that fire return intervals, or time between fires, in these montane regions was much shorter than it has been in the last century. Using timelines reconstructed from tree rings and fire scars from a number of locations across the region, researchers identified a timeline for how frequently fires occurred in the past. They found that across Southern California, fires generally occurred at a 2 to 6 year interval, with a few sites seeing fires at 8, 10, or even 13-year intervals. You can see this timeline reconstructed for the Cleveland National Forest and Cuyamaca Rancho State Park in the image depicted. Despite this past history of frequent fire, we know that time since last fire has increased significantly in the present day from the research of project team member Nicole Molinari. On this map, you can see the areas in red on the San Bernardino and Angeles National Forests, where the time since fire has reached periods of 80 to over 100 years. When fires such as the Apple, Bobcat, and El Dorado fires, which all occurred in 2020, burn through these regions, they encounter these dense forests with substantial fuel accumulation, resulting in stand-replacing fire and additional forest loss. Across all 4 Southern California forests, you can see that the majority of these montane regions have experienced no fire at all or only a single fire since 1908, which is a massive departure from those very frequent fires you saw from the tree ring fire scar data. This lack of fire and increasing stand densities has made forests more susceptible to drought, disease, and insect mortality, and you can see the results of that in the photos on the slide. A prolonged drought in the early 2000s caused substantial mortality across the forests with nearly 2.8 million trees lost. With the more recent extended drought that we experienced in the last decade, between 2010 and 2019, another 1.4 million trees were lost. In addition, during that time, there were approximately 74,000 dead oaks recorded, which is likely an underestimate, as the mortality caused by the gold-spotted oak borer was not monitored and comprehensively tracked until more recently. Addressing this mortality issue and removing these millions of dead trees required extensive partnerships that we hope to leverage to promote proactive planning and management to avoid future tree mortality and forest loss. As these forests have lost their resilience to fire, drought, and insect attack, there have been substantial implications for biodiversity and wildfire. Severe, stand-replacing fires, like I was describing earlier, have become far more common, resulting in the loss of large areas of forest across the region. As a result of both these fires and tree mortality, important species like the California spotted owl, the California mountain kingsnake, and many other sensitive plants and animals have seen a loss of habitat quality and quantity that may affect species persistence. To address these issues I've just described and develop a more proactive approach to mitigate the threats and vulnerabilities in our montane forests, we're developing a climate-informed conservation strategy. We'll gather scientific-based guidance on threats and vulnerabilities to develop goals and actions to restore and enhance forest health, but also look to practitioner perspectives to identify approaches to overcome barriers to taking action. We understand that there are substantial challenges to planning and implementing projects that can restore forest health, and we intend for this strategy to be both grounded in the best available science, but also cognizant of the potential barriers to action. We can only be effective at restoring and protecting our forests by working together, because these threats don't stop at boundaries or fence lines. So we plan to take an all-lands approach, working to find common ground among different partners and stakeholders across the region. By creating opportunities to develop partnerships, we envision that this strategy will lead to joint projects to enhance forest health and resilience at the landscape scale. Partner and stakeholder engagement are critical to the success of this strategy and to the projects that we hope will follow. To protect these interconnected systems, we'll focus on promoting broad-based, ongoing, and sustainable collaborative action. These issues that threaten our forests were over 100 years in the making, and restoring and protecting them will require long-term investments in partnerships. Our team will be working together to support this collaboration through a coordinated outreach and engagement process. This will include in gathering input from technical advisors, practitioners with on-the-ground experience and knowledge of the real-world challenges to accomplishing this work, as well as community partners who live in or near these forests or visit them for recreation. In addition, we're also committed to creating space for our tribal partners and tribal communities to guide the development of the conservation strategy. This is especially important for those whose ancestral lands are within these forests now owned and managed by others, and who were the original stewards of these lands. We'll be gathering input from a technical group on the scientific information we'll use to guide the development of the desired condition and strategies and goals for the project. We plan to distribute a survey to practitioners to better understand regulatory constraints, funding limitations, logistical issues, institutional challenges, as well as community concerns that must be addressed in the strategy to overcome planning challenges and barriers to implementation. As we move forward with the development of the Southern California Montane Forest Conservation Strategy, we hope you'll join us and share your thoughts and vision for a healthier, more resilient montane forests within Southern California. We invite you to reach out to us by emailing info@climatesciencealliance.org or visiting the webpage you see on the screen at www.climatesciencealliance.org/southern-forests. Your voice is important, and we need large-scale collaborative action to protect these sky islands of forest within Southern California. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to hear from you.